Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hey everybody, I've got kind of a long drive, so I thought I'd try to record an episode while I'm driving. Don't worry, I'm not doing this in a dangerous fashion. I'm just kind of puttering down the road safely, and am able to record hands-free, so we'll be okay. But welcome to the Arcane Alienist. I missed last week. The end of September is always a hectic time for me in my real life. It's the end of the fiscal year for the place where I work, so we're always scrambling to get in some last bit of accounting and report writing and closing out the year and getting ready for the next year. And that includes, personnel evaluations and new strategic goals, and everything comes to a head kind of at the end of September for us. So I got busy with so much stuff last week that I wasn't able to get out this episode that I wanted to get out. So we've got a week off, and hopefully I'll get back to weekly episodes because I got a lot of stuff I want to do. I've got some products I want to review. I want to chip in something for OSR October this year, but I'm not going to get to it in this episode. Anyway, today mostly what I've got a call from Anthony Boyd, Runeslinger from the Casting Shadows podcast, and I've got one from Jason Conerly of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. And they kind of tie together a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But first, let's get into this call from Anthony. This was kind of a late call that he had forgot to send me earlier, and then I'm even further delayed because I didn't get this episode out last week. But this is a final call he had intended to send in at the end of August for the RPG a Day month series that we did. So here we go. Take it away, Anthony.
BJ, it's Anthony calling in from the road. It's so bright today, there are no shadows being cast anywhere. Oh no. Anyway, I wanted to congratulate you on completing a most difficult task. By joining in the middle of the month, you kind of doubled your workload, and yet you completed it, and completed it with style. So that's pretty cool. So congratulations, and thank you for doing that. And welcome back, as we said before. I've heard a lot of people talk about the favorites thing over the years, how hard it is to pick a favorite, and it is hard. And I think the original thought process behind all the favorites questions in year 1 and year 2 of RPG a Day really was about that challenge, so that we could talk through the process of what made a game our favorite, or made a whole bunch of games our favorite. Like, I find when we look back at our youth, it was a lot easier to choose a favorite then, to have a favorite ice cream flavor or a favorite cereal or a favorite game or book or whatever. But as we age and get more experience, there's a lot more nuance in it, and it gets harder to refine it down and give some kind of limiting context, like, this is my favorite role-playing game to play on a Tuesday when it's rainy and the following people are available. So it's a challenge. So over the years, the favorites questions got weeded out as being too challenging, and certainly for year after year kind of thing. But what I really liked is your suggestion that it's who we play with that makes a game a favorite, and that really rings true for me. A particular game can be really light and airy and responsive and immersive, or just plain hilarious with one group of people, and just be a normal game with another group of people. There's an alchemy to play, I think, and each component matters. It's just a question of how it matters. Anyway, thanks again for undertaking the burden, the hopefully joyful burden of playing catch-up with RPG a Day. I enjoyed listening to your posts, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with when you get back to regular podcasting. Anyway, thank you again, and take care.
Thank you for the call, Anthony. It was good to hear from you. And I think the more I think about it, the game does not matter to me so much as if I'm playing with a good group of people. That's key. And I'm probably up for any kind of game, any system. I think when we talk about preferences, I have the games I'd like to run because they're either rule systems that I understand well or that I feel I can manage to make interesting things happen, or they involve a genre or a setting where I feel like I can come up with interesting scenarios or interesting plot lines or challenges for people. So when I start to think of favorites, it's usually what I start to think of less, I guess, the longer I go as a lifelong gamer, less about, again, a specific game as a player that's a favorite, and more as I guess my favorites are what I gravitate to towards as a game master, because it's what I feel like lets me do my best work. And as just a player at the table, I don't care what we're doing as long as I'm with some people that we can have a good time together. Which is an interesting segue into one of the things I want to talk about in this episode. Anthony was kind enough to run a game of Hollow Earth Expeditions, which is based on the Ubiquity role-playing game system, for me and Jason Conerly of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, Carl Rodriguez of the GMologist Presents, and Joe Richter of Hindsightless, which I think was a pretty good challenge for Anthony to take on, running a game for the original Cerebrivore crew. I think that's the first time. I think all four of us have done episodes of Cerebrivore together. We've all played together with one another at some point. Like, I've played with each of those guys at some point. Each of those guys have played with one another at some point. But that's the first time the four of us had actually come together and played in a game together. The four of us have never, as far as I know, we've never been in the same game at all with one another. So that was new for us. But of course, we know each other, and I think, as I said, in different groups of us in different pairings and triads have played in other games together. So we have enough familiarity that it went really well. We had some technical difficulties to start off with. And I felt bad. Anthony, I know you were getting a little frustrated, but you did a good job, and the rest of us were kind of able to, cut up and entertain and catch up with one another while you got kind of the game rolling. And it was great. We had a great time. I really enjoyed the way that Anthony, put together a scenario that showed off the Ubiquity system. A really cool idea of it doesn't matter what dice you use as long as they're, as long as you don't get some kind of weird odd numbered dice, because it's just a binary. It's either a success or a failure, so high or low or odd or even, however you want to roll it. You roll dice and you create a dice pool based on what ability or what skill you're using, and the more dice you roll, if something requires a certain number of successes, of course, the more dice you roll, the more likely you are to get a success. Very simple, very intuitive, very quick once we got going. So I had a lot of fun learning about the Ubiquity engine, and I'd really like to play a little more with it as a player. And then at some point, once I familiarize myself as a player, maybe even look at running it someday. But I also like the Hollow Earth Expeditions setting. It's very pulp kind of setting, and when Anthony set us up as we are test pilots in the World War II era, not in theater in Europe or Japan, but just test pilots in Florida. Suddenly we kind of start in the middle of the action of the base has been attacked suddenly by German planes, and we scramble into the air, and we do some dog fighting, which was a lot of fun to play as World War II ace Air Force pilots. I guess in World War II it's still Army Air Corps, wasn't it? Anyway, but a lot of fun there. The ubiquity system worked really well there, and then the Germans unleashed some weird electromagnetic effect, and the next thing we know, we're not where we thought we were. And of course, the meta of that is we've been transported into the Hollow Earth, and all our instruments are going crazy. We all crash. One plane I think is salvageable, but the rest are toast. We crash into a swamp and are trying to extract ourselves from our crashed planes, and suddenly are encountered by mega fauna. There's a giant crocodile and a giant snake, trying to avoid the converge to get to one another because we're all scattered, and that was a lot of fun, very action packed. And again, the ubiquity system I felt modeled that very well. And then as we're kind of trying to get ourselves out of that situation, then there's a school of giant piranha coming at us, and I think what we wound up doing is I'm being chased by a giant school of piranha headed towards the other guys who are now dealing with a giant anaconda or some kind of snake. And so I dove under the snake and popped up on the other side of it in the water, and we shoved it into the oncoming piranha so they could feast on the snake, so we could have time to get out of the water. I think we'd lost sight of the giant crocodile at that point. It was trying to eat someone's airplane, but and then extract ourselves, try to get what gear and supplies we can, march into the jungle. It's funny, the sun doesn't seem to be moving. Why is the sun not moving? Well, because we're in the Hollow Earth, right? And came across an encampment of very haggard-looking German soldiers who obviously had been here for some time. And then we kind of ran out. We kind of ended on a cliffhanger. I mean, this was supposed to be a one-shot, so I don't know if we'll ever get back to it. Maybe we will someday. We sort of planned an ambush, but then we were just about to carry it out when we kind of ran out of time for the evening. But it was a lot of fun playing with those guys. A good example of playing with people you enjoy playing with, and I would count that with the other three, with Joe and Carl and Jason. But also, this is the first time I think maybe any of us have got to play with Anthony, but also fit right in with the group, and we had a great time. So yes, always good time playing with good company. So I appreciate that, and I think hopefully Anthony's going to join us. I'm going to try to run a one-shot of We Deal in Lead, and I think maybe we'll get Anthony to join in that, so it'll be the same 5 of us again for that, just this time with me running the system. And we're gonna explore a little bit of We Deal in Lead. And I think previous episode Carl had kind of made his character for that. We've had a little bit of scheduling difficulty. Hopefully we're going to play. I think we're going to shoot for the first week in November to do that, and I'll tell you more about it when the time comes. So thanks again, Anthony. And I think speaking of We Deal in Lead, now we'll turn to a call from Jason. So here we go.
Hey BJ, Jason here. Enjoyed your We Deal in Lead review. I hope you found the cutoff column for the names. It's in the PDF I have. If not, maybe try to update your PDF or get one, because there is a column for 1 to 25 for the names. So not sure what happened with that. I'm just listening on the audio, so I couldn't actually see anything, those being shared. I personally do have an issue with the shoot table. I think it weakens the gunslingers. I realize they're bypassing defense and doing damage straight to attributes, but they shouldn't really be missing. And I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, it played fine when I played with Jason Hobbs, but I think thematically it's a little problematic. But anyhow, great review, and I'm looking forward to whatever you do in your show next. Take care.
Hey, Jason, thanks for the call. I understand, but I say I understand. I'm not just cold responding to that message. Actually, again, because it's been a couple of weeks, Jason sent that message and I listened to it, and then I jumped on the Discord discussion group we've got for the group that originally played Hollow Earth Expeditions, and I posed that question because Joe Richter had mentioned the same thing to me in a separate conversation about not liking the way We Deal in Lead handles the fact that gunslingers can miss. and I think there was a discussion about whether it's consistent with the fiction from the Dark Tower. Jason and Joe are the opinion that it's not. Carl kind of pointed out some situations where in the series, Roland actually does miss with his gun, or wings people and doesn't just hit dead center. So I'll leave that up to them to discuss and debate. I actually, full confession, I've only read the first novel in the series, and it's been several years. And then I did watch the film adaptation with Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba, which, oh Lord, I can see why that didn't take off as a film franchise. How do you take a Stephen King novel and make it into a PG-13 movie? That just, oh, well, and to think that it's got Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, and you can't, I mean, that should be cinematic gold. Put those guys on stage and let them read the phone book back and forth, and you should get a good performance, right? So, anyway, but it was visually nice to see the world of the world of the Dark Tower. Visually, it was a nice looking movie. It just didn't quite pull off, I think, what it needed to accomplish to be a good adaptation of the Gunslinger. But anyway, all that being said, I understand the concerns with the maybe the gunslingers, because the question I posed was, what's the challenge to a gunslinger if they never miss? It makes for a good novel and a good fiction, because anything, the writer is in complete control of what does and doesn't happen. When you have a game where there's supposed to be challenges that produce a chance of failure, what happens if you have a character that can never miss with an attack? And Joe very much pointed out that the challenge for the gunslingers are being outnumbered, having limited ammunition. So they're going to hit, but they only have 6. They can reload really fast, supernaturally fast, of course, but still, they're limited by their rate of fire and the amount of ammunition they have in their position. So they can be outnumbered. They can be, face challenges of things that, hurt them or make them sick or, thwart things. And of course, you get into a wider kind of fantasy game. There are lots of other things that can happen to you besides being shot by somebody else before you can shoot them, right? My ultimate take on this, and this, even my intention when I first found We Deal in Lead, was not to run it as Dark Tower, the role-playing game, but to take some beats and some inspirations, but to kind of turn it into your own world. And I actually, probably subconsciously in my mind, without really thinking about it, was kind of imposing some ideas from The Witcher onto it. And again, we're just going to run a one-shot, so I'm not committed to running a campaign when We Deal in Lead right now. But my thought was that you've kind of got this broken, drifted world, and the gunslingers are sort of the guardians, that there are things that slip in through these cracks in the walls between the planes or between dimensions, and that shouldn't be there, and that come to pose hazards and threats to everybody. And it's kind of the gunslinger's job when that happens to slay the monster, or maybe if it's not an evil thing that's kind of there but just still shouldn't be there, needs a way home, to kind of deal that. So they're still kind of actively involved in a sort of, night, a nightly pursuit, or a sort of a fantasy lawman sort of role of sort of being the guardians of these gateways and cracks that allow things to pass between dimensions. I got kind of a little bit of a Planescape feel to it as well, as I think I've mentioned before when I've talked about We Deal in Lead. So not that that's going to matter. I'm just going to put together a scenario so we can sort of explore the rules and have a good time, and then maybe it'll evolve into a campaign idea if it gets the wheels turning. But Westerns in general are I always get a mental block when I think I'd like to run a Western game. I just don't, which is strange because D&D is so much of a Western in itself that you just run a D&D campaign and, remove the fantasy veneer and put on a Western veneer, particularly if you want to do Weird West. You can keep the magic and the monsters and the, non-human species like elves and dwarves and things like that. Just, just reskin it a little bit, and you've got a Weird West there. But anyway, So yeah, I will come back and talk more about We Deal in Lead after we've had a chance to play it out. I did get a hold of Runeslinger, which is Colin Lesueur's other Cairn-based role-playing game, and it's set in a post-Ragnarok. It's sort of the Norse cosmology, but it's post-Ragnarok, so you're not, playing Old Norse. It's Ragnarok has happened, and the 9 realms are in disarray because the gods are gone, and it's kind of what would happen. What would the world be like after Ragnarok? And that's kind of the setting there. So it shares some sort of beats with the We Deal in Lead. It came first, and I may provide a little more detailed review of that when I get a chance to digest it some more. Anyway, that's it for today. I want to thank Anthony and Jason for calling in. Be sure and check out their individual podcasts. Anthony has a YouTube channel as well. I've kind of made some jokes and some serious questions about what should my sign-off be. I don't have a concise, I always say something like, take care of yourselves out there. I'll be back later. But it occurred to me the other day, my grandma used to drop me off at school when I was little. She was the one who would take me to school and drop me off. And really anytime she would take me anywhere, whether it was school or whatever. The last thing she would say as I was leaving was, make somebody happy today. Have a good day, love you, make somebody happy today. So, take care of yourselves out there, and whatever you do, try to do something to make somebody happy today. And I'll be back later. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.